Hello, welcome to the digital art lesson for continuing the last class that we had. I'm a little late to this, but I apologize for that, but hopefully this will help get everyone started and get them going so that when we meet next, we can be productive. So what we're looking at today is interiors and the styles and things that we can use, concepts from photography, interior architectural photography, to use those concepts in Blender to create good lighting and get natural looking scenes. We'll be doing a room with two windows and lit by an exterior scene that shines in, and so we'll start off immediately and just delete this light. Let me turn on my screencast keys. I just installed this so that we can do that. You'll see down in the lower left here, it will show the keys that I'm pressing. So if I hit X to delete that out, and then we're going to adjust the size of this cube. It doesn't have to be precise, but we'll hit S to scale it, extend it out a bit so that we have room to move in. You can even do, if you want to hit S and then something like Y to make it a little longer, that can help you frame the scene a little better with the camera. We'll manipulate the camera in a little bit, but let's go ahead and do Tab and then select Edit Mode. And in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to do a few loop cuts, and so that's Control R, and a little pink line will come up depending on where you have your cursor. So if I have it somewhere where it makes sense that it would be a vertical cut, it'll do that. If you kind of move your cursor over, you'll get horizontal cuts, or you could even, I think, let's see if we can do this, get one across the top. There we go. So if you look at those, what we want, we'll be doing a few of these. You can do them in any order, but so you get the pink line the way you want it, you click, and then don't click again because you can move this around. So we'll be making some windows, so let's just create arbitrary places here, but we'll do two vertical cuts like this, and then two horizontal cuts. And like I said, it doesn't really matter where you put the window, but we're going to take out this middle part here. Alright, so we're in edit mode, and we're selecting the vertexes right now, vertices, and we're going to click on face down in the bottom here, and we'll click on one of these faces, hit X, and then we'll delete face. I think if you do only faces, it's the same thing in this case. And so that opens up into our cube, and then hopefully everyone has figured out how to move the view around here, but we'll just kind of flip over here. I just middle mouse buttoned and then rotated, click this one, hit X, and then again hit faces. So if we look down here, we've got two windows kind of opened up. One thing, if you wanted to do this, so this is something that we didn't talk about in class, but if you hit Tab and go back to object mode, and then if you scroll over here, so I'm using my scroll wheel because this menu in the upper right here has a lot of options, but there's this wrench, and the wrench has modifiers. And one thing you can do is actually add, you add a modifier and do solidify. And then in this case, so this is one thing we talked about it in class. The units that are measured here are kind of arbitrary. They're called Blender units. And if you want to see units that you understand, you would click on this render layers. The scene, and go to units. And if you want feet, you can do imperial, or if you want metric system, you can do that. So feet and inches would be imperial, and then if we go back to our modifier, we'll say average wall thickness might be somewhere around 5 inches, we'll say. So we type 5IN, hit enter, and what you'll see down here is that the walls have a little bit of a thickness now to them, which just to resemble a window is always, there's not just a flat flat two-dimensional structure in a window. So that's one thing we didn't do in class, that since you have time to watch the video and go back and forth, adding that solidify modifier. We also want to turn on even thickness. So one thing, if we look at the Z and then wireframe, you'll notice that the walls here have a little bit of a bulge. If we do even, it means that it's going to do it evenly across the whole mesh, and that's just a nice thing to have. Alright, so we have our room now, and what we want now is we want to position our camera inside. So we're going to go to the top view to start with, and we'll go view, top, and in this one we can see the camera. If you can't see the camera, go ahead and zoom out, click on the camera, and the hard thing to do is position it when it's in perspective mode. So we'll go view and then perspective ortho, and there are keyboard shortcuts for these, but this flattens the image out. And then to move, we hit G, and we'll just slide it over so that it's kind of in the middle of the room at this point. And then we'll rotate it with R and kind of point it towards the middle of the room. And if we want, we can switch to the camera view. We'll do viewpoint camera, and you can kind of see where it is. We've done this before in the past, but if we do N, and in the view, if we scroll down here, probably hit it earlier. Where's view? There it is. Lock camera to view. This way, if I move, I'm actually moving the camera as well. So you can kind of rotate around the room, hold shift down, kind of pan around. We'll try to frame our scene a little bit here so that we've got something interesting. So we'll have a little bit of a window here. You don't have to do this at this point, but I like to set up so everyone can see it. But we'll be pointing at this back wall here with a little window in so we can see the outside, and then not too low. We talked about in class, typical interiors are at mid room height or higher typically, because that way you get a good angle on things. So if you go a little bit above, you might tip down just a little bit to get a little view of the floor there too. Alright, so we'll leave our camera there. We probably won't touch it the rest of the time unless we really need to. Alright, so now we'll go back to our top view. And I apologize, the menus here. Normally I use the keyboard. Top view and look down at this. Okay, so we're a little bit over to the right. That's fine. Alright, so now let's go ahead and add, I'll hit N to clear out that side menu. Let's go ahead and add our exterior. And to do that, what we've done, I shared in class this little album of photos. If you type in bit.ly, bit.ly/cool, and then a dash HDRI, so high dynamic range images. That will take you to this photo album. And I've added one for the snow since we managed to get that, and we'll go ahead and use that one since it's a nice exterior with lots of light. So you can go scroll through these and see there's a lot of interior shots as well. Let's try for your use to use an exterior one, just so you get the lighting. So you can go through, you click on the little check boxes as you hover over them, and then in the top right here you hit download. So we'll go ahead and download that one. I think I've already downloaded it. Once that's downloaded, you can close your browser and go back to Blender. Alright, so in Blender, let's go ahead and set up our interface here so that we can kind of work a little more efficiently. Let's slide this menu back over so that it's kind of small. Lots of room up here, and then the lower part will switch to be the node editor, and it typically comes with that menu out, so that's just N to hide that. And then down here, if the students hopefully will remember that we don't have all the options that we want, so we have to go up here to change the render engine to cycles, and cycles will help us get a little more realistic lighting, and it allows us to do some fun things with the world texture here. So we'll click on world down at the bottom, and then we'll click this use nodes. Kind of just sets up the material for us. And we've got our background coming in. What we want to add, so we hit Shift A, and then we do a texture and an environment texture. And that option, you can connect the dots now or you can do it later, but we'll open up. So we open, and then hopefully you know where you saved your files. Typically if you're using Chrome, it's going to go into a downloads folder. We had some issues in class where students didn't know which folders, so if you don't know, you may have to ask an adult to help you. But for the most part, downloads, hopefully everyone will have that somewhere accessible. You may have to go through the whole system to get to it, but in this case, this is the one that we downloaded, and I just happen to know that, so it's fine. So now I'm going to drag the yellow dot to the yellow dot, and you see nothing. We don't see anything because we don't have a good angle. So we'll drag the top right corner here, press T to hide that left tab, and then this one we'll set to be the camera view, and we'll hit Z to set it as the render. And it may take a while to see the rendered room that we've got, and the room is just white because that's the default. So now we have our workspace kind of set up. You can kind of tweak sizes if you want to get a better view of that. Essentially, to get it and now help. I keep hitting white. I'm using my letterless keyboard, so I frequently mistype. So if it hit T to get rid of that left menu, and then we'll hit Shift A to add a lamp, and it'll be an area lamp. And an area lamp, you need a little bit to resize it and drag it way out. So we'll just keep going. You can see it's a rectangle. And coincidentally, that works really well for what we're here. And R to rotate, and then X, actually, sorry, to rotate it along the 90, and that way it'll bring it vertical, and then hit Enter or click. So and can kind of hit G to move it over into the middle here. So we're not dead in the middle, I guess, with our window, but that's pretty close. Somewhere in the middle there. And then hit S to scale it up, but we'll only scale it on the Y-axis, and we'll kind of go up till it gets, try to eyeball it here, but you can kind of see. Doing it from the top view. Alright, so and we have the lamp, and what we want to do is we want to tell, we don't want it to give off light. We're using this to tell the computer how to render the room. So we're using it as a portal, and we won't go into too much detail, but this helps, and you'll notice that one G to duplicate, and just drag it, and you can hit X if you want to just do it straight across so that it goes in the other window. Now you'll figure out, so we actually are do the vertical size, so let's cancel that. We'll go back here, delete that one that we were just working on, and go to vertical, and we'll move it up just a little bit so it's in the middle, and S to scale it, and hit Z since we're only going in the up and down direction, G and Z to move it up. You kind of want to fill that space as best you can. I'll scale it on the Z a little bit bigger. Okay, there we go. You want to hit D to duplicate it, hit X to move it only on the X-axis, and then we're going to do a R to rotate, and we're going to hit Z to rotate it only on the Z 1080. So essentially, we flipped it all the way around. You'll the grain has now reduced significantly. It helps the computer to render that light that's coming into the room. Alright, so now if we want to make the room a little bit more well lit, we can let's zoom in here to the background and give it a strength that's a little bit higher. Let's do 2.5. That's probably plenty of light. Let's add a table and a lamp and a picture with a frame. And so to do that, we're in object mode still, so you can tab and go object mode just to make sure you know what you're doing. If you hit A, you can deselect everything. So we're going to add wherever this 3D cursor is. If it's not where you wanted it, if you accidentally hit right click or to move it, so if it was over here, we want it in the center just so we're moving things, and you hit Shift S and then do cursor to center, and that'll move it back to the middle. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add, let's do the table at the back. So let's do Shift A, and we'll just add a cube, and we'll nip it to S to scale it X. So I hit X to go in the X direction. We'll make it a little bit long, and then if we go to this is S and then Z to make it, we don't want it too thick. So we'll make it nice and thin there. If we do S and Y to make it a little bit deeper. Alright, so now you can G to move it over to a corner here maybe. Looks relatively nice, and then in front again, side you hit E and then Z to move it down wherever you want the height of the table. So if it's an end table, it might be below the window, or you can put it kind of close to the window. Alright, wherever that is, that will add edit mode. Now we'll cursor to the Shift S, cursor to selected. So we don't have anything selected. So if we hit A and then hit Shift S to active, let's see. There we go. Shift to selected. There we go. It'll go in the middle of the mesh that we just are editing right now. Alright, then we hit Shift A, and we'll add one cube here. We'll scale X to shrink the width of it a little bit. Then we can S and Y to scale it in that direction. Alright, looks work, and then we do. Alright, so now we'll hit G to move it somewhere in here, and hit S and Z to scale it just up and down. And we'll just kind of eyeball it here, and then put it wherever you would like the of your. And then we'll hit D to duplicate it, and we'll move it, hit Y to just move it along the Y axis. And get it. And we're not aligned. So let's do G and X to move them over to the side a little bit. And if we want them, Shift D and then X, and we'll just create a duplicate and move it over to the other side. Alright, if we look at the slide, we'll add some object mode, and since our cursor we'll add our lampshade, and then move it vertically. You can eyeball it if you like. That'll our set that edit mode. I'm going to down, click along the bottom, and we'll select all S and just scale that out so that our lampshade is a little bit weird. And we'll have the next bit with A. And the cylinder is going to be like for the S to scale it down a little bit, and SZ to scale it up so it's a little taller, and then we'll move it so that it's roughly on top of the table. We'll hit Alt, so link nodes, and then we'll move that down. It's roughly in the middle there. So we look to, so we go ahead and Control Alt and then click so that we get the whole thing. Do our top view. Well, that actually is probably a good spot. If you want to move it over a little bit, you can make it a little asymmetrical here. Then I'm gonna move it over to this side. Alright, so we're now go to object mode. Let's just for 10 add one, and I'm going to say R, and then X, and then 90. So we'll rotate it 90 degrees on the X. We'll to it a bit to the back wall here. You don't have to be super accurate, but you can hit Y if you want to just move it straight back. And if we zoom in, not necessarily putting it flat on the wall. There's always a little bit of space. I don't know about anything to do about. So it's like Y and let it up. So we do G and then Z to move it just up. And then if you do this, you want it to be bigger. You can scale it S and X to scale it on the X-axis if you want a wide picture. Let's do one. This one is if you like inhabit it, and then you hit I, you'll notice that you can kind of make a border, and so we'll move it in, make it look something like. I'll go ahead and tag our two buildings so we can see it down the bar on that. And we'll move here. Let's select. We'll call this one wood and select something brownish. Let's see. I like that. We'll go dark on that. Okay. So that gives you pick up the piece and add a texture to it. It's something colorful. Now we move back across it. I really what I did do. Right now it's using one material, so we want to add another one, and we want to add the wood material that we put in. And when you start to click it, hold on one of the frame pieces, and then click on wood sign. And what you'll see is you're still in mode with object mode, and if you want, you can scale this out again to make it a little bigger. If you want to make it a little more dramatic. Since we learned we can actually more into our table, so let's add a material to the table, and we'll select on this part, select wood. That'll just mean that we select things within. So click on USDF, hit the material like wood. Our brown, find our brown again. Nice dark brown. And then we got if it's real wood and not having to be on a deep coat, and what that's going to do is make it a little bit Alright, our lamp, we're going to do something similar to what we did in the painting. So we want probably two materials. One, we don't have anything right now that's useful, so we'll create that we base. So once again, the base will pick something interesting, like we'll do a blue, a little bit darker though. Okay, there. This will be real, and we'll call this one. With that one, the shade just be a weird yellow. Okay, edit, and we want to sign. And then you'll notice in the menu, I don't know about you, but I don't think I've ever seen a straight cylindrical lamp like that, because I feel like the light might not work real well. So we'll add, we're going to add a modifier that most people will use these a lot to do more curved surfaces. So it's called subdivision surface. And it is we're actually going to do in the release, if you want to see it, this is roughly the same. So you can we can zoom in here so you can see it. What it's doing is it's dividing all the surfaces, and so it makes it to that. And here, I'll hit the round E to extrude. And what we really don't care about is we don't really want it to move. So we're going to this is kind of so it's essentially an extrusion. We're going to control to cut, and we're going to pull this up so that it's roughly. You can do this, you could cut and then pull it down, and then you can and then stretch it like this to get a bend. Let's down. We'll stretch it out a little bit so it's kind of a fat bottom lamp. I'll pull down that here. That was ago, and then make this a little more narrow too. Lamp shaders. We'll stretch that one out a little bit more. And that other one, stretch it out a little bit more too. Here, object mode, G and X to move it over a little bit. Alright, there we go. Okay, so let's zoom our camera back where it was. Get a little nice shot here. So the last one is optimize where it is pretty good as it be. I'm going to slide this over a little bit, and we'll zoom this out. Alright, So now what we're going to do is we're going to improve one last thing here, which is when it renders. So the little camera in the right here is the render menu. And there are a few things we can do to help with the rendering. If we push all these down, so sampling, when this, well, let's stretch this out so everyone can see it. So the render samples, you could put that up to like 250. So it's going to go over 250 times to try to get the best possible image that it can get. Preview the 32. So you see it's real noisy. Alright, same rendering it and make it better. And then light paths, we're going to do a max bounces of just 4. And the reason for the bounce of the more articulate many light bounces, there's really no difference. Just take a lot of time. And then finally, if you're doing this on a computer that has a 3D, so if we go up to the render, if you have a GPU compute device, if you select that, if you don't have that, don't worry about it. Don't do anything to this. This is like, if you have this option, go ahead and pick that, and we'll go down here and switch the tiles to something like 256. And what that will do is when we hit F12 or we hit render, this render button, what you'll see, I'll zoom out here. Well, I know in my luck I may have to go tell it I have these. So if you want to see if you have the GPU compute, what you end up having to do, I guess it's just, it may be just, oh, it's loading the cycle, so we can look at this while it's going. So if you go to the system, user preferences, and under the file menu, user preferences, system tab, you will have something down here if you have a 3D card. Those can help speed up the render time. So if you have these, definitely use them. It will be to your advantage. The first time you render, it does take a little bit to get the rendering engine, kind of all the stuff that it needs, loaded. So in this case, you can see it's taking its time to render this, but the next time we do it, it will have loaded all that stuff, so it won't take quite as long. And let's see, once it starts rendering, what we'll see is little squares here that show up with like a little orange corner that says this is being rendered at the moment. And I think because I had switched, yeah, there it goes. Because I had switched to this, it needed them into the inks card. Alright, so now as it processes the little corner, and what you'll see is an image that looks not too unreal. Obviously there's some texturing and stuff. We haven't talked about texturing, but obviously most of these you would see there would need to be some type of texture on them. You know, a lampshade is not just a flat thing. Painting is not just a flat thing. And there's some cool things we can do with the painting, like add an actual photo in there. But as you can see, as the render kind of draws to a close, it's really just got these two, well, I guess 3 spots maybe that it needs to finish up. But as you get more and more detail, the render times go way up because it just takes a lot more to figure out where all the light goes, and you know, it's just a lot of computational processing that has to happen. But this is what I want your end result to look like. You can do whatever type of furniture you want. If you want to add a light into the lamp, that's, you know, try different things. Have a little fun with it. You know, take a room in your house and try to kind of recreate it in simple shapes. You know, if you have a desk or something, just use rectangles. Don't try to put a whole bunch of detail into it. But if you want to put detail into it, in the same way that I used that subdivisions modifier, you can do some fun things with that too. Definitely try out all the different things you can do with the different modifiers. We'll be looking at stuff like the physics simulations at some point, which are super fun because we'll get to knock things over. And with that, this is almost done rendering here. We'll see, 85%. So the last little bits are always hard because it's trying to figure out where all the majority of the light is doing a lot of work right here. But I'll go ahead and call that good. And if you have any questions or need any help, please don't hesitate to email me or have your parents email me. And good luck, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys make. Oh, one last thing. Once your render is complete, and I was hoping mine would get done in the time it took me to say this, but you can do image and then save a copy or save as image, save image, something like that, to go save it out to your desktop. Go ahead and send me the image and your Blender file. So two deliverables kind of for this class. An image of your render, so I can kind of have those as to kind of show off for people, mostly parents. And then also your Blender file, so I can kind of look and see how you've laid things out. All right, so we did environment texture on the world. We did some materials, multiple materials per mesh, and overall, I think you guys were doing pretty good in class. So do let me know if you have any trouble. All right, thanks. Talk to you guys on Wednesday.